IVM.
Hello one, hello all. Welcome to the Diary of the Traveling Professor. And I'm Siddharth Deshmukh, your friendly neighborhood traveling professor himself. What do I have in store for you this week? Going back to school. In fact, I did a bit of my own version of this when I asked all of you guys on LinkedIn or on my Instagram, what kind of topics would you want me to cover over here? And a lot of you answered some, in very enthusiastic fashion, and not just that, but some really good directions for me to move ahead. Because all I can say is that I see this podcast as a box of chocolates. So you can look at it and have a selection of various things that, can stimulate the imagination a little. So having said that, today's diary entry is going back to school. In fact, a lot of India is going back to school right now, and a lot of the world, or maybe a lot of the US, will be going back to school in September. And a lot of the world will be going back to school because, lockdowns are unlocked and the rest of it. Now, I am wondering about this. I'm wondering on many, many fronts. So as a professor who loves to have his class, in an actual class, well, Zoom meetings are fine, but in an actual class, it's obviously, something I'm looking forward to. But you know what I'm not looking forward to? Is students actually pouring back into campus and suddenly being infected by the coronavirus, passing it on to older professors and becoming hotbeds of the virus itself. So I'm in a bit of a moral quandary. What is the right thing to be done over here? Now, it's a very interesting problem or an opportunity, the way in which you look at it, for all school administrators. Some school administrators are doubling down saying, we have to get students back to school. And perhaps there is an economic reason for that. And not perhaps, there is an economic reason for that. See, some campuses are built in such a way, and some business models are completely dependent on those campuses. So actually, when a student signs up to a particular school, he or she is actually signing up to the experience of being on that campus. Not just he or she, but also the parents. Now, the funny thing is, that is under question, because if I take admission to a school, it's quite likely that one term or even two terms are likely to be online, and people might be going back to school, but they're beginning in a virtual way. So the experience of a campus is something which definitely is going to go missing. And so there is a bit of a compromise here. Now, again, very complicated issue, right? Because you have, on one hand, you not having the experience of a campus, but on the other hand, you belong to a system, a community or a club or whatever you want to call it, which will allow you to, differentiate yourself from other people, especially if you've gotten into a prestigious school. Very, very, very difficult for the student to decide whether they should take a gap year or whether they should not take a gap year. On the other hand, school administrators are trying all possible ways of doing two things. One is not reduce the fees, because eventually salaries have to be paid and campuses have to be maintained, whether or not students come down to campus. And at the same time, actually deliver a really good experience for students. So there have been different measures that have been taken in order for the students not to, feel that there's something amiss. Of course, there's something amiss, but at least the student knows that the school is making a special effort. And some schools are certainly succeeding in this as much as they possibly can in the situation. Now, having said this, what should an individual do? Suppose I have an admission in a college. What should I do? Now, here's my answer. Here's the traveling professor's take on this. I think that if you belong to a prestigious and well-known sort of institute, I think you should take that admission. And if it fits into your life's plans, you just go ahead with it, because that will still count. And the reason why it will count is, even though you may not have an off-campus experience, you've built a network, perhaps not a community, but at least a network of people who you can grow with through the rest of your lives and your careers. maybe. So also, it's quite likely that you will at least have some part of the experience when people do go back to campus. And, the networking thing and the rest of it might work. And to be honest, the quality of the lectures, while of course they're compromised, and of course, there's a lot of peer-to-peer learning that happens when you're in a class, as well as the professor, who's used to a classroom, takes his delivery a notch or two above a Zoom meeting. It's still possible. It's still possible, very much possible, that you may still benefit if it's a prestigious school. But if it's not a prestigious school, then I would just suggest drop it. Drop it, take a gap year, explore yourself. Yeah, explore the world around you as much as you can, of course, in this lockdown, or try to get some work experience, or try to just learn skills. In fact, one of the things that is happening is that I'm now beginning to see a lot of people get on and do some skill building without really bothering about going to school. So people are going for data analytics or Python or so on and so forth. And that's excellent. That's an excellent strategy to have, provided you're not confusing it with going to school. Because I don't think that school is only school, college, university, whatever you want to call it, right? I don't think it is only about building a skill, although that's a big part of it. I think it's the network, it's the experience of peer-driven learning, it's the experience of being responsible for your own, a lot of people are going away from home for the first time. All of that, or people who have been having some work experience, getting back into education. It is a cathartic, life-defining experience which goes beyond skill building. So my view is, any person who's looking for a cathartic life-building experience, please take a gap year. Okay, don't waste your life doing some online thing. Build online skills instead. Take up a skills building course for the next year or so. Take some work experience and see how it goes. For the universities, I know that this would mean that there are people who have taken an admission and gone away. But wouldn't you rather have people who have gone away and want to come back at a later year than having disgruntled clients and customers, dear universities? Of course it is. So have a think about what I'm saying. If you're a student, if you're a college administrator, or if you're a professor. Professors, I think this is the biggest challenge for all of us, right? Because all of us are used to a certain pattern of doing things, and now suddenly it's all being challenged. I am loving it. I'm welcoming it because it has the ability for you to grow and evolve as an individual and as a teacher, and be able to connect and deconstruct things into the very basic elements. I think that's what's happening in the main. The deconstruction of the school to its various elements: networking, campus experience, skill building, all of that. Well, I hope you like this diary entry of mine. Many more to come from where this came from. Thank you for all the suggestions on Instagram, where you can obviously follow me, and on LinkedIn, very obviously you can follow me as the Traveling Professor. If you like podcasts like these, well, there's, again, ivmpodcast.com, which you should go to, or just download the app. Until next time then.
I hope you enjoyed that show. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money and Intel. It's been a really cool week on the network. We've had Ashwin Sanghi on Cyrus Says. We have Masaba Gupta on Advertising is Dead. You should definitely check out Vivek Lath, who showed up on Storytellers and Story Sellers. A close friend and partner of ours, Karthik Paricha, was on the Pragati podcast talking about the future of podcasting, which I think is only really interesting. And I would like to ask people to check out All Things Policy and what they've been doing. They've been having some really interesting discussions about India's challenging relationship with China as we go forward. And I think that would be a great thing for you guys to check out. So with that, we hope to see you again next week.
Advertising is dead. Yep, you heard me right. Advertising is dead. We're all in the content business now. Let's not call it news, TV, radio, etc., etc. It's all content, and we're in the middle of this weirdly exciting phase where all the borders and lines that have been drawn over decades has been swept away by this lovely thing called the internet. We're a show where we don't dwell on just the stuff that is now, but rather the wider stuff about advertising, media, content, and the whole goddamn circus surrounding it. tune in every Tuesday for our weekly unboxing of the mystery box we used to call advertising. I'm Varun Dugirala, co-founder and content chief at The Glitch, and this is my new podcast, Advertising is Dead.